Thank you, Denise. Denise is a great example of an Anderson High School student. She works hard in the classroom, on the athletic surface, primarily in cross-country, track, and the academic quiz team, and in the performing arts. Let's give Denise one more round of applause. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you to Anderson High School this evening to recognize Coach Andy Wolf. Andy is a father, husband, grandfather, friend, teacher, historian, coach, confidant, mentor, motivator, and counselor for so many. The only way Andy could be such of a support for us is to have a solid foundation himself. The only way that Andy could give the time for others is to have a group who's willing to share Andy with us. The only way that Andy can give the love that Andy gives others is for him to be loved. At this time, I would like to have Andy's family rise and be recognized. His wife, Barb, his children, Katie, Kelly, and Kyle, and the rest of the Wolf family. Thank you for sharing your husband, dad, grandfather with us. Your willingness to share such a great person is a gift to so many. Please give them another round of applause. I would also like to recognize Andy's former athletes, students, assistant coaches that are here tonight. Can you please rise? If you are a colleague of Andy's, either at Anderson or opposing coach, please stand to be recognized. I met Andy as a young football coach here at Anderson. I was busy trying to find my way as a teacher, coach, and husband. I have to be honest, I did not realize the impact Andy had on so many. If I didn't come back to Anderson for another chapter, it would have certainly been my loss. I will never forget Andy at the Mason cross country meet this year. He spent a lot of time with me that morning sharing the best viewing spots, strategy, and information on each and every one of his runners. I quickly realized what Andy's all about. He's an educator. Thank you for taking the time to educate a new principal on the nuances of cross country. Speaking of cross country, I absolutely love the sport, but as Randy Corbett earlier said, look at me. It's not in the cards. I love the accountability that exists to the athlete and the team. I love the grit, perseverance, and persistence it takes on those hot afternoons and cool mornings. You know what I love the most? The fans cheer for everyone. They cheer for the number one runner, and they cheer for the last runner at the same level. They celebrate the PR as much as the win. Don't get me wrong, I know they want to win, but I sense a sisterhood and brotherhood that Andy expects from all his student athletes. I also had a chance to work with Andy on the Anderson High School Veterans Wall. If you've not had a chance to see it, please take time to recognize all of the alumni and employees who have served our country. Thank you, Andy, for taking on such a huge and important project for Anderson High School. Thank you, Andy, for your passion, love, and dedication to Anderson. Thank you for giving of so much of yourself so we could learn from and find our passion. Thank you for providing a roadmap for many on their journey of life. Tonight's crowd is a testament of how people feel about you. I would like to share a few words with you from Anderson alum and runner Paul Mentor, who wrote about Andy in the Aspen Daily News this week. After all those years in the classroom, the tens of thousands of lesson plans and quizzes and tests, coupled with the hundreds of track meets, all the joys and sorrows of competition, nurturing adolescents through the stages of understanding of what it means to be accountable, to compete, to take responsibility for themselves, and sometimes even for the things bigger than themselves. After putting up with the parents and the paperwork and the politics, this ceremony is very much about the realities of everyone who has the privilege of his presence in their lives. As a principal and the representative for Anderson High School, I would like to thank Andy for everything you have done for Anderson High School and our community. Thank you. I would also like to recognize a few people that are in attendance this evening. Mr. Scott Preble is our superintendent. Mr. Mike Broadwater, our assistant superintendent. And Mr. Chris Newton, our athletic director here at Anderson High School. One of my first emails as principal, I don't even know if I was officially the principal yet, and one of my very first meetings as the principal was to organize this event. And I would like to recognize the committee that put this event together tonight. Frank Brandy, Mike Broadwater, Don Connolly, Randy Corbett, Beth Davis, Teresa Gross, Renita Homan, Joe Kelly, Carrie Lee, Jenny Nyack, Chris Newton, Rick Profit, Sean Profit, Dee Stone, and Barb Wolf. Thank you. I would also like to recognize our custodians, led by Dwayne Stewart, for their help as well. Thank you, Dwayne, and your team. At this time, I would like to present our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Mike Hall. Mike Hall and family moved to Anderson Township in 1982. Mike had been hired to be the Forest Hills School District's Administrator of Athletics, Health, and Physical Education. In 1984, he became principal of Little Miami High School, and then in 1985, he was selected to be the principal of Anderson High School. For 18 years, he oversaw more than 5,000 students graduate from Anderson. During his tenure, Anderson High School was regularly in the news for academic achievements, athletics, and the performing and visual arts. If I am half the principal Mike Hall was, I would consider my career to be a success. I think it's very fitting that Mr. Hall officiates tonight's ceremony. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Hall.
Good evening. Welcome, all of you. In all honesty, there's no place in this world I'd rather be than right here at Anderson High School tonight, honoring Andy Wolf. I gave some thought to being in my own living room with a fire going, but I say that because we're here to recognize not only an outstanding coach, but more importantly, a great human being. Tonight's track dedication is a gift from the Anderson community to a coach that devoted his life to not only making better athletes, but making athletes better people. I can't think of anyone more deserving to have a track named after him than Andy Wolf. The saying goes that behind every man is a great woman, and I'm going to have her stand once again. Andy's wife of almost 45 years, Barb, is sitting right here. Tonight you're going to hear from several people whose lives have been impacted by Coach Wolf. But before we get to them, I want to just take a couple minutes and talk about Andy's gift to teaching in the classroom and coaching young athletes. While everybody knows of Andy's accomplishments on the track and fields across the city and even across and beyond that, I'd be remiss if I failed to mention that he was a talented classroom teacher. And over the years, Andy taught American history and government and geography and in classes like Quest and another one called Teenagers in the Law. And Andy's common sense approach to the classroom is what made him a great teacher. That same common sense approach helped shape his coaching as well. And I believe in my heart that Andy has not succeeded simply because he was a great coach and a great teacher. He succeeded because of his ability to bring out greatness in others. And that's what Andy Wolf does. He brings out greatness in others. I first met Andy in '82 when I accepted a role in the administrative offices of Forest Hill School District. And at that time, I was spearheading a district-wide, one-of-a-kind program called Team Up for Drug Prevention, and it focused on athletes, teaching them about the awareness of drug abuse. I remember specifically that Andy spoke out and embraced the program on the first day. And because he was so strong in his support, it significantly helped us to launch the program and eventually taking it to thousands of high schools across America. Coach Wolf has always been focused on supporting his athletes and supporting the school at all times. And not only was he a graduate of Anderson High School, but I quickly realized that he was a champion for Anderson High School, both in his actions in the classroom and as a coach. One of my daughters had the privilege of running for Andy, and still today talks about lessons she learned and picked up from Coach Wolf. And I saw how he impacted my own daughter, and I watched him do it over and over again to many young people. One of the more personal stories that I wanted to tell, and I didn't get to the dinner right away, and I got there and people were telling stories, and so I hope nobody's told this story, but one day on a weekend, my wife Ann and I went up to Troy because the girls cross country team was in the district meet at Troy. And it was freezing cold that day. And when I got there, Andy asked if I would get involved in a motivational thing that he wanted to do for the girls cross country team. And when they lined up on the starting line. So he had 9 boys from the boys cross country team and me. And we took off our coats and our shirts, and they painted a big letter right on our chest. So when the girls got to the starting line, all 10 of us took off our shirts and jackets, and we spelled, "Go Anderson." Now, I want to say it inspired him to win the meet, but honestly, I don't really remember. But I will say that I would not have gone half naked in the middle of winter for anyone else other than Andy Wolf. But Andy's tenure as a high school cross country and track and field at Anderson began almost 45 years ago. And his success as the head coach will never be matched, I don't believe. And along the journey, he coached All-Americans, he coached state champions. And the neat thing is that numerous athletes he coached became track coaches. Andy himself won more than 40 conference, city, and district Coach of the Year awards. His teams won more than 100 individual meet championships, over 20 conference championships, and more than 45 state meet individual qualifiers. What is uncertain is how much longer Andy plans on coaching at Anderson High School. But what is certain is this, that the Forest Hill School District will never again have another coach like Andy Wolf. His impact on Anderson High School will last for generations. And starting tonight, his name will rightfully grace the track here at Brown Stadium, the Andy Wolf track. Congratulations, Andy. Tonight's first speaker is a longtime assistant coach of Andy's and an even longer time friend. Pat Ellis is truly an outstanding math teacher at Anderson High School for 31 years, from 1976 to 2001. He coached track at Anderson with Andy for 27 years. Pat Ellis.
When you give an important speech, you're supposed to have a binder, so I brought my binder. And of course, it's good because inside are pictures of my kids, so that's good. Now, we only have about 5 minutes, so I'll probably not mention everybody's name, and I apologize for that. He did say that I could pick on him a little bit, so that's how I'll get started with what I hope is a little bit of humor. So I went and looked up in the psychology manual, and he suffers from a disease. It's called 9.69. It's a CTD, so you have to say it carefully, compulsive timing disorder. He just started his watch, I heard it, okay? This will be written down someplace, how long every speech took, and, you know, it's just something he's not been able to overcome. It's CTD. You gotta be careful about that. He had Mrs. Harris for English, and it kind of traumatized him, and so he doesn't always speak quite correctly. He still thinks there's a high school called Rogers Bacon in St. Barnyard. And I just think it goes back to that kind of stuff. And we just had the league meet, so the next thing up, according to him, is the sexuals. Sorry, folks. And I can't tell you what he called the bicentennial year, so you'll have to think about that. I don't know who his health teacher at Anderson High School was, but he didn't do so well because he thinks 3 of the major food groups are coffee, onions, and White Castles. So, anyway, I wanted to start with a little bit of humor. He said I could pick on him a little bit. I grew up in Northern Ohio, and so we listened to Motown and CKLW out of Windsor, Canada. And one of the great singers of all time, Aretha Franklin, said, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, and that's my theme tonight, respect. I'm speaking for Adam, Ben, Brian, Lou, Teresa, Carrie, Missy, Eddie, Angela, Mickey, Melty, Trevor, Bill, Mike, Michael, Jerry, Joe, John, and Robert. And if I left out any assistant coaches, I apologize. Now, he's a great coach, and he's surrounded himself with other great coaches. 3 of the coaches I mentioned are state champions, 3 are state champions, and 1 was a national champion. So he's had some support, but he's always been in charge. And the nice thing about coaching with Andy is he lets you coach. And that was always a good, great thing. All right, now, R, racing. It's important to prepare and learn how to race. He wants people to win and race. He wants them to take them to that barrier where they feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then once they break through, they're going to be a winner, and they'll be able to take that forever. So he taught people how to run. And of course, I got to see that sort of thing. I didn't know there was strategy in the 800 where you keep your arms low, and at 300 meters you kick. Great stuff. He taught people how to dress correctly, how to warm up. So racing is always paramount. When we got off the bus, we wanted to win. We wanted to do our very best and get better. E, for excitement. Being a member of the track program, excitement. For 20 years in a row, I'm pretty sure, we won the 800 or the 880-yard race, and it was just a given. If you're going to the sectionals or the district, Anderson's going to have an 800 runner in there. And so I still remember on this very track, in about 4 inches of rain, on cinders, where all the lines had washed out, Jeff Justice beating some kid from Purcell Marion. I don't remember the kid's name, but he was pretty good. He, of course, has it written down on every 10 yards what the time was. I remember Eddie Kuhn, who coached with us, winning in about 1:57 over at Norwood. I remember on our cinder track when Paul Mentor, who wrote that nice article, goes down on the cinders, and it took us about 2 weeks to get the cinders out, and Richard Farr looks at him and says, "It's my turn. It's my time." And he goes and he wins. And now he's an outstanding principal himself down in Texas. And I was standing on the finish line, I don't know what my role was, when the girls 4x400 broke 4 minutes. Wow. He likes women, as we all know, and so he added a lot of events for the girls. So he added the pole vault, and he invented new events for steeplechase so that they could compete. He added the division at the Anderson Invitational way before anybody else would, and so he's an equal gender coach, men and women. He's for them all. He's there all the time trying to teach them, encourage them and stuff, so that's another plus. I got to see Lisa Graham win the state meet. That was my first state championship situation, so that was great. My first time to go to state was with one of the Mitchell boys, Dan Mitchell, in one of the distance events. And then, of course, I had the great good fortune. They made me the throws coach because I most closely resemble on the faculty of shot put. So I got to be throws coach. I had great throwers like Erin Stowe and her partner, Tracy Ellis, Dana Brown, Alex Lira, Chris Hoffmeyer, among others. Many of them still hold the records. And then, of course, another exciting time for me was when we went to see Paul Menner become an All-American in the decathlon. His coach got held up with some of his other athletes, and so he needed a refresher on the javelin. We were there, so Mr. Wolf took him out to the practice area and got him set up, taught him, or reminded him some of the fundamentals of javelin throwing, and so he went on to become an All-American. So that was pretty exciting. And then for him probably, and for Tracy and I as well, watching Kyle get second at Ohio Northern in the country in the pole vault after he had taken and smashed his own nose all across his face with some kind of slip, and he still got up like you do when you're an athlete and got second in the country. Probably would not have won because that was the year that the kid from the Purple Raiders group went over 18 feet for the first time anybody in that division did. So that was exciting. All right, now I get to turn the page. S, the sacrifices he's made. He's sacrificed his body for Anderson track and field and cross country. Lots of times when I stop by, he's limping and he's torn another hamstring running from one side of the event to the other to encourage the kids. And that's because he did not properly warm up. You also need to know that for many years, he coached the girls' team for free. They didn't pay him for it, and he did it. If he had raised a ruckus, he was afraid that they would then take away his coaching opportunities, and that wasn't worth it. It was worth him sucking it up and doing the stuff for free for a while, and that's sacrifices made. In the days when we had a cinder track, he gave up sleeping because we had to line the track ourselves. Riffle and some of the guys were reminding me yesterday that we did have them carry the bags of chalk out, so we didn't do it all. But and then of course, whenever we'd get the track all nice and neat, it'd rain, and so we'd have to come up Saturday morning and line it again, knock holes in the concrete so it drained, so we could have a meet. All right, now here's the most important one for me as an assistant coach, and that's P, and that's pole vaulting. This man saved the pole vault, as far as I'm concerned, in the state of Ohio. They put together a safety program that all the coaches have to go through. The muckety mucks at Columbus wanted to cancel the pole vault after a person got injured up in the Columbus area, fatally, and he saved it with his group, his committee, and so anybody that pole vaults in the state of Ohio owes him a great deal of thanks. In his time at Marietta, he cleared 10.6, and then as a decathlon participant. And he told me early on in our careers, when there were only two of us and we had about 125 kids, that he knew about running. And at that time, he was still a highly competitive runner, so I understood that that was true. And so he decided that he needed to learn the jumps because he knew about running. And so that's exactly what he did. And of course, we've had 2 state champions in the pole vault. His son is, second in the country. His daughter-in-law is a national champion. We've had other great pole vaulters, John Porter, Todd Curlis, Rob Scott. Just amazing that somebody with this body knows everything there is to know about pole vaulting and can show them and stuff. E, and of course this is near to my heart, eating, okay? Not only does he in his early days loved White Castles, but liver and onions. So, you can't knock that. And then some of our away meets were scheduled simply because we knew that they had good concession stands. Laughlin had a great concession stand, so we'd go to Laughlin, and of course part of it was he wanted them to run in a closed environment because you feel faster, so you run faster. We take the kids up to Mansfield because another one of his philosophies is that you compete against the best, you see what they're doing, and that's going to motivate you, and indeed it did. So we took the kids up to Mansfield, and we had this shot putter, and so his parents knew that he needed a lot of calories, and so his snack from Cincinnati to Columbus when we stopped for 2 20-piece McNuggets for him was 9 pounds of grapes, supplied by his mom and dad. So we were afraid when we got there that whoever took him in wouldn't have enough food to feed the group. And then, of course, up at Mansfield, they had the greatest Polish sausage sandwiches going, so I'm sure that was some of the motivation as well. Lou Andreadis and Scott Ham showed us the proper way to eat food at a buffet. I didn't know that you pile the bottom with 3 inches of mashed potatoes so that you can then put the drumsticks around, fill up the little crater then with food so that you don't have to go back as many times. It's a matter of efficiency. And of course, the best eating story of all is we used a bunch of the faculty, I think it was like 99 cents, eat across the way at the chili company. And they had this thing called chili onion pancakes. And nobody in Cincinnati had enough guts to do it until he comes in and does it. And the cooks had to come out and see because nobody had ever ordered that before. So, and then of course, he might have mentioned it a time or two in his classes, so, the kids had him go over and do it a couple more times, and he just sucked it up and did it. All right, C. The man is a great carpenter. He builds decks, he builds enclosures for the hot tub, and then he repairs everything around here. So the long jump boards, he made them. He made extensions for the pole vault so that we could get the pole vault a little bit lower and more people could enjoy it. He still, from my time, has the toe stop up there for the shot put. It's illegal, but it's still there. Nobody knows. So he's a great carpenter and fixes all the hurdles and steeple barriers. And then one day he comes down with the brown and white van, and there's all these orange boxes in there. And I think we're going to do magic tricks or something. I don't know. And it turns out he knew about plyometrics. So we did plyometrics, and he built all the plyometric boxes, and eventually I think we got some good ones. And then T, as I'm almost done, is for team. Even though some people think about track and field as an individual event, at Anderson, it's a team event. And when we get new kids out, he would always say, give it 2 weeks, and if you still want to quit, you can. But if you're 2 weeks on the team doing all the stuff and listening to all the stories at the beginning of the practice, then generally you stick it out. And then, of course, once you stick it out, after 4 years, you generally turn out to be a champion. All right, so to sum up, because I've probably run over my time, because us math people are kind of linear thinkers. I didn't know what to call him. Should we call him the patron of Panera? Should we call him the Titan of track? Should we call him the antiquity of Anderson? But I decided that the most appropriate thing is philosopher coach. So he's more than a coach, a philosopher, and he knows how to motivate you and show you. And so for all the assistant coaches, I quote Bob Hope by saying, "Thanks for the memories."
Justin Coletta is for the Anderson class of 1994. He's a former Anderson High School track and cross-country runner. And he's also a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps from 1996 to 2005. Justin Coletta.
Mic drop. Sub 5 minutes on this track? Nope. You know, Coach Wolf has us all fooled. He come across as this really enthusiastic track coach that can tell you when you kicked it in a little bit too early, kicked it in a little bit too late, how to glide over a hurdle a little bit better, soaring the pole vault a little bit higher. But that's not what he's really doing. To understand what he's really doing, you have to understand who he is at his core. You see, at the core of Coach Wolf is a distance runner. He's trained his body and his mind for the long game, for the long run. And that's what he's doing with us. Yeah, he wants to make good runners. But what he really wants is to make good people. Now, I'm kind of a goofy guy. My compass doesn't quite point north. But when I was younger, I was goofy, but I was also bad. Bad to the point that on a regular basis, the school and sometimes even the police were calling my parents because of something stupid I had done. After a conversation with my older brother, I found myself joining the track team. And after that, it was the cross-country team. And things changed for me. At one point, I'm going in one direction. Not passing my classes, probably not gonna graduate high school, no future in sight. And then I'm going in another direction. Passing my classes, I'm coming out of my shell, I'm conceiving a future for myself. Now, I could use a lot of big words and terms to describe what Coach Wolf did for me, like elephant or umbrella. But instead, I'm gonna tell you a story. It's a short story, it's not particularly long, it's actually not even really funny. But it's my favorite story. It's a story that I use to describe who Coach Wolf is to people, especially my troops when I'm trying to teach them. The story takes place about midway through my running career as cross-country season. As it was back then, as I'm sure it is today, the boys and the girls teams were quite close. Well, the girls team got in their head that they all wanted to go to this dance that was coming up. So they started pairing off everybody, making sure everybody had a date. One young runner, she didn't have a date. So everybody kind of collectively looked around and said, you know what? Justin should take her. So people started dropping hints, like, hey, Justin, you see that nice young runner there? And I would respond, yeah, I saw her, but me and Glenn Hawk saw some squirrels in the woods. We're gonna go chase them. Or, hey, Justin, you take anybody to the dance? And I was like, no, Star Trek's on that day, duh. Well, I just wasn't getting the hint. So after a cross-country meet, on the way home, I found myself cornered at the back of the bus by a couple of the runners. There, they sat me down, they said, Justin, you should go to the dance. and you should take this nice young runner with you. I was like, I'm not even sure she'll go with me. If you ask, she'll go. So I mustered up some courage, hop a couple seats forward, and I asked that nice young runner to the dance. And she said yes. And then the bus erupted in laughter and happiness. The clouds parted, angels blew their horns, sunshine came down, doves flew around the bus, whole 9 yards. Everybody was happy. Everyone but me. You see, I'd never been to a dance up to that point. Never been on a date. Never even held a girl's hand other than my mom's. So I'm not sure if he just felt a disturbance in the forest or he saw the look of fear in my face, but I heard my name bellowed out, Justin! It echoed. I looked up. It was Coach Wolf. Come here! He commanded. So I moved to the front of the bus. Sit down! He ordered. So I sat down. Now mind you, Coach Gross is also at the front of the bus, and she's all giggles and smiles. Justin's going on his first date, so she's not helping the situation at all. Coach Wolf looked at me with those wide wolf eyes of his, and he asked, Justin, did you ask that nice young runner to the dance? And I responded, yes, Coach, I did. And he smiled. But then his smile faded, and all emotion drained from his face, and his eyes pooled into two black orbs of doom that pierced my soul and sent shivers down my spine. And in a tone that can only be described as coming from a father of two young, beautiful girls, Coach Wolf looked at me and said, Justin, there's some do's and don'ts when you take a young girl out on a date. We're gonna go over those right about now. So there, at the front of the bus, Coach Wolf went over the do's and don'ts of taking a young girl out on a date. Needless to say, the date went off relatively well. I'm gonna close with Frost. He's one of my favorite poets, but I want to use a little liberal license with his words. Two roads diverged on a wooded path, and because of Coach Wolf's guidance, love, support, and mentorship, I was able to take a path less traveled. And that has made all the difference in the world. Thank you. Coach Wolf, congratulations.
The next speaker is Sean Prophet. He's from the Anderson class of 1988. He was a 1988 National High School Steeplechase champion and an All-American in track and field. Sean Prophet.
I was asked to be on the committee, and then I was asked to formulate a speech tonight. And then when we were talking about it, they said, well, you should talk about the 80s and when you ran. And so when I was thinking about it, you know, a lot of stories came to mind. You know, do I talk about how we used to be able to haze, you know, young runners, do certain things to them, you know? Do I talk about the time that Doug Render, Rex Taylor, and I went up to the Ramones concert in Dayton at midnight on a Friday, and then we came and ran a cross-country meet? Yeah, we didn't do so well. The only one that caught us was my dad. Do I talk about, you know, Brian and Glenn Hawk? You know, the times we had together, and Hawk always saying, we got to drop my younger brother off first. No, you know, we're late. We had to let him go chase squirrels. Do I talk about the times that Brian and I would go over to Forrest's house and hang out and ask? They said, hey, Forrest, did you run today? Were you at the track meet? I was like, yeah, you saw me there, Sean. I was like, well, you know, I don't even think Turpin scored 20 points at the track meet, so that's why we were trying to ask. Certain things like that. So, you know, do I talk about when I came back from college and watched Andreatta spike himself before a race? You know, it's just so many stories and so many memories that come out of Anderson. And while I was here, and for, you know, my brief time, you know, a lot of people forget I was only here for 18 months. And that 18 months affected my entire life, my entire family's life, and went on. So as I kept thinking about it, I asked Mrs. Gross for the honor roll. And I got some stats from the honor roll and they were truly amazing. We've had 23 runners on the boys' side under 4:30. We've had 19 girls under 5:30, 26 sub 2:30 girls in the 800, 34 sub 2-minute half milers on the boys' side. We've had 43 cross-country boys under 17 minutes. And on the girls' side, we've had 23 sub 20. I told all that to my wife, and I was like, hey, what do you think about that? And she goes, are those good? I said, geez, couldn't I have just married somebody that would understand some of this some of the time? And so, you know, but to her point, I was like, okay, well, how does that really stack up? So I got a couple of the IT guys at our house, or excuse me, at work, and I asked them to, you know, run a couple things out on the internet. And they put together an algorithm for the mile, and they put a sampling together. And they said of the 37,000 schools, high schools that are in the United States, our top 20 milers on the boys and the girls side would have the school record at 80% of those schools. So then I took that back to my wife, and she said again, is that good? And I said, that's pretty good. And so then you start to think about who holds the school records? The people who make it to state, the people who are winning the conference championships, the people that are all state. And so then when you put that in perspective, you get these folks that come through schools and you say, he's a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. He's somebody we're not going to see in another 15 years come through this school, another 20 years through these halls. We didn't have the one-time athlete come through our halls. We had the one-time coach that came through and made us a lot better and affected our lives. Thanks.
Algorithm's a big word.
Next speaker is Chelsea Hallman Merklin, I'm sorry. She's from the Anderson class of 2001. She's the 1999 Ohio High School Division I cross-country state champion and a state meet qualifier in 3 sports. Chelsea Hallman Merklin.
I'm a little shorter than the other speakers here, so. To say that Mr. Wolf has had a successful track record would be an understatement. You've heard a lot of stats here tonight. Having been on the cross-country and track teams from 1998 through 2001, I was lucky enough to run with a group of very talented ladies, the original Fast Girls. A few of them are here today: Marissa Duvall, my little sis, Jenny, Allison, Autumn Cosmer is here, Julia Pagano. We made it to regionals and even state as a team. We were able to travel to Alabama, Kentucky, Malone, to compete against some of the top national cross-country and track talents. And we were pretty good. But Mr. Wolf's ability to coach top performances out of talented athletes is not what I want to focus on today. There's a quote that Mr. Wolf used to say often: as long as your legs reach all the way to the ground, you can be a runner. Though he may have initially directed this at the 75-pound, 4'0" freshman versions of the Homan sisters, I think the meaning goes a bit deeper. Because one of the things that makes Mr. Wolf so special is that he truly believes that anyone who wants to be a runner can be a runner. Tall or small, fast or slow, and even better, he celebrates the unique contributions of all of his athletes. There were no cuts in cross country or track. If you wanted to be there and you showed it, you were part of the Wolf Pack. One example I will never forget is the day that one of my best friends, Courtney Rochon, couldn't be here tonight because she's getting married next week, finished the Mount Washington Loop. As a self-proclaimed member of the Backpack, what Court may have lacked in God-given ability, she more than made up for in heart. Those 8 miles were her personal Olympics. She had attempted many times but never succeeded in finishing. until one hot day her senior year. And as she rounded the Salem to Beechmont turn, Mr. Wolf made sure that we were all lined up on the track, waiting to cheer her into the finish. She tells me that this is one of her most cherished high school memories, and that without Mr. Wolf's unwavering confidence, she may never have gone on to finish the New York Marathon just a few years later, with many of her former teammates there to cheer her on, I might add. And that brings me to another quality about Mr. Wolf that makes him so special. He taught us that a successful team is about more than winning, that a team is made up of grit, heart, spirit, love, fun, and family. There were no cliques, no hard line between varsity and JV. He helped us recognize that every single athlete and personality brings something different and valuable to the table, which we learned through all types of bonding, sleepovers, campouts, spaghetti dinners, even the occasional and always retaliated TPing of the boys' team. Sorry, Mom and Dad. In developing those relationships, everyone wanted to succeed for one another. While we competed against ourselves, the clock, other teams, and sometimes even one another, it was a supportive and fun team environment that truly fueled the desire to perform and improve, a lesson that I've been able to carry over into my personal and professional life. So Mr. Wolf, thank you and congratulations on this amazing accomplishment. I am so honored to be speaking on behalf of all of your athletes, from the state qualifiers to the backpack members, who share my appreciation for your wisdom and unwavering support. I am grateful that when I look back on my time at Anderson, that I remember not just the PRs or individual accomplishments, but supporting and being supported by a group of hardworking, caring, and inspirational teammates, coaches, teachers, administrators, and parents while having a blast. With your memory now officially and permanently part of this facility, I know that these lessons will continue to influence all who circle this track for decades to come. Thank you.
Next speaker is Debbie Gallagher, and she's a teacher and diving coach at Anderson and longtime friend of the Wolf family. Debbie Gallagher.
I was asked to speak on behalf of the parents, so I would just like to tell you what a blessing we feel like Coach Wolf has been to all of us. So if you have a son or daughter who has run for him, you do know what a blessing it is. Personally, my husband and I are so honored to call Barb and Andy Wolf, as well as Coach Carrie Lee and her husband Dan, our friends. We are grateful that such fine human beings will forever be part of our son's life. I have three things that I think all parents would like to thank Andy for. First, being such a fabulous role model to our runners. You lead by example, you're honest, you're hardworking, you're funny, and you're forgiving. You never screamed at our children, you never used foul language. However, the kids knew when they had disappointed you or didn't quite live up to their potential because you were direct and honest with them. You tell it like it is. The second thing we love about you, and the thing that I love, is after every cross-country meet or after every track meet, he sends out an email. That email will always arrive within 24 hours of the meet. He usually includes what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just last week, he talked about the alternative transportation form. He said that is supposed to be used for emergency because teammates stick around for each other. Today, he wrote the letter at 3:30 a.m. to talk about the Friday night ECC meet. He talked about the boys and the girls who pulled in the hurdles, set it up for the track meet, and he just went on and talked about how valuable they were. It's not always about the best runners, but he also thanks the kids that really stick around and are there for the team. I also feel like in that time that he talks about the kids, he makes some of the kids feel just extra special, not just, again, because they're the best runners. When I read these little emails, usually I'm either laughing or crying, or I'm just so proud that I'm part of the Redskin family. Finally, I love the fact that my son and all his friends and most of your sons and daughters still love running. Andy kind of keeps it all fun. He kept it light. And it's nice to know that our boys and our girls, have grown on to be great runners, but still also that they love the sport of running. He didn't ruin it. They all still love it. And so I'm so grateful for that. So Andy Wolf, you are such a blessing to so many. We love you to pieces. Thank you.
next is Katie Wolf Whaley, Anderson High School class of 1992. She ran 4 years track and cross country, and Katie is the oldest of Andy and Barb's 3 children. Katie?
Shorter than the others. It was a dreary, overcast, high chance of storms day in April in central Kentucky. But there he was in Lexington in the middle of the week. Why would you drive down to Lexington and back for the evening, people asked him. Because it's my granddaughter's first track meet, and in our family, that's a sacred event. This is track in our family. I was asked to explain what it's like to grow up as Andy Wolf's kid. Because I am his kid, this might take longer than 5 minutes, but it's cold, so I'll try. I have memories of cross-country camping trips in the summer where teenagers seemed like gods. And oh, how I just wanted to have Julie Hawk's hair. I knew of Dwight Stone and his Mickey Mouse t-shirt. I looked up to Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and I know exactly where I was when FloJo died and I sobbed in my car. But the real heroes of my childhood weren't the superstars of the world, because those people were superstars in my house. My heroes were Lisa Grand and Linda Emmerich, Jeff Justice and Sean Profit, Anderson High School runners who gave it their all every day. And I heard about it. I grew up playing with sand toys in the long jump pits and running results to the press box at meets, where my mom tirelessly worked tallying scores and keeping it together. I loved the hustle and bustle of the press box and listening to Weeble on the microphone, calling the races. Meets at this track were certainly a family affair. I knew the ladies in the concession stand by name, and I knew Dave Moore, a longtime track official, only as Santa Claus. In the summer, Dad put on track meets for free, and anyone could come, and even us young kids could race. This stadium was our second home. And our family life revolved around track and cross country. In fact, I've often wondered if perhaps my mom's one regret wasn't getting married the 1st of June and spending all anniversaries at the state track meet. But she's always been a steadfast presence and support of this program and all of the people who've come through it. Before kindergarten, we lived out beyond Anderson and Withamsville, and every Sunday after church, we'd come to school to drop off a week's worth of teaching clothes into Dad's office, which smelled clearly of the locker room that it was next to, so he could run to school each morning. During the winter, I can still have the memory of him coming home from weekend runs with icicles hanging from his mustache and beard. I also remember sitting home on Saturday nights as a kid, not realizing the team was toilet papering the yard. It happened way back then. So Sunday afternoon, again, was spent picking up toilet paper from the house, and he would use broken pole vault poles with a hanger attached to the top to get it out of the tops of the trees, laughing as he did it. Because doesn't everyone have pole vault poles laying around their garage? We did. In the fall, they were used to swing off the tops of the swing set and into a pile of leaves. And during the Olympics, a young Kyle would use the yardsticks as pole vault poles to catapult himself around the house, much to my mother's dismay, breaking every one of them. I knew kids whose dads would return home at the same time every day, and dinner would be ready and on the table. And while we always ate as a family, it was had whenever practice ended and everyone was home. Then he would go down the basement and work on the lineup for the next meet, or he'd sit in the family room fixing hurdles. I remember going to the state meet to watch Bill Riffle compete in the pole vault, and I kept score in the stands with smiley faces for the O's. He won, so there wasn't any need for brown faces. And the year my own relay team just missed the state meet, I went along to Columbus anyway, celebrated my 16th birthday in that stadium, because that's what we did the first week of June in my family. It was all a way of life. Back in the day, this track was made of cinders, as Pat had said, as some of you, lots of you remember, and probably plenty of you have scars to prove it. I remember when my dad worked tirelessly to raise money to put in this beautiful all-weather track. And I remember something about Anderson not getting an all-weather track, if Turpin didn't get an all-weather track, and some more fundraising he did. And finally, it was ready to come in. So while most coaches, I imagine, would let the company that does the installation of the surface take the lead on this, or at least the athletic director, we all know he's not most coaches. He was in it every step of the way. And when they first lay the rubber surface, apparently it's very important that no one or animal touch the rubber while it dries. And really, who would want to? But no chances were taken. He camped out right over there for days. And the family, Well, we came along. We got sleepovers in the school, in the locker room with our cousins and our friends. We watched movies on a black and white TV, ran the halls, and slept in the locker room while he stood guard all night long. Doesn't everybody? And then I was in middle school and finally able to be on a cross country and track team of my own. I clearly remember my first cross country meet, wanting to die at the end and crying, swearing I would never put myself through that pain again. And I'm pretty sure he just laughed at me. I'm sure he laughed at me. And I remember my first track meet at Sycamore, so tired at the end of the race and my mouth was so dry, and all he had on him was a Tums, so we offered it up. It did not help. But I'm sure he thought it would toughen me up, or put hair on my chest, as he would always say. And I remember my Grammy being there. And she was watching. She was amazing and strong and so proud of her son, Andy. Not one prone to oozing compliments or gushy love, but that day I will never forget. She offered up one of the greatest compliments of my life when she said, "You looked like your dad running out there." And I cannot fathom how proud she and my grandpa are right now, smiling down from heaven and making everybody in the front rows cry. And run we did, all of us kids. Middle school, high school, and 2 of us in college. Track I loved, and cross country, well, my friends were there, and there wasn't much of a choice as to whether you went out if you were Andy Wolf's kid. But in track, I learned to love why he loved it so. The rush of the wind on your face down the back stretch, the crowd as you enter the home stretch at the end of the mile relay with the meet on the line. And that's why we're here, because Andy Wolf gave us all that feeling. Let us know what it meant to be part of a team, and a successful team. The hard work and the sweat required, but that joy in winning. I remember a conversation my senior year in high school telling someone that I was going to run in college. Well, of course you will. What would your dad say? But I'd given it a lot of thought. And at Anderson, I loved it. But there wasn't a choice whether I went out for the team. But in college, I got to choose. And what I learned was that I wanted to run for me. It was in my blood. It was in all our blood. Kelly's often here, still working the meets. Kyle married another collegiate athlete, an All-American, and still coaches track. And I have had the joy of cheering on my own daughter as she rounds that bend. See, that's when I cried. As I think about the roles I've had over the years, the experiences, the actions, the people I surround myself with, the goal is bringing out the best in someone. It's doing what it takes to help someone figure out what she's good at, helping her see her own potential and believing in it and making that happen. I bet we all have that in common. Now, some of you may have strut onto this track for the first time as amazing as Sean Prophet, but a lot of us were that skinny kid without good running shoes, looking for somewhere to belong and someone to believe in us. And we're all here today because we found that in my dad, Coach Wolf. And I was lucky enough to see it every day, giving someone a shot to be great. As a kid, we would take summer vacations, often to track meets and sometimes not. But wherever we went, always he would run into somebody he knew, someone who was thrilled to see him. His reach is amazing, and today it's been overwhelming to see how many people have gathered here from all parts of the country to celebrate him. As I told my kids about this weekend, my 10-year-old said, "We have to go to a meet and greet to talk to Grandpa, but I can talk to him anytime I want." And aren't we the lucky ones? But today you all gather from all over the country to come to him to celebrate. What was it like to be Andy Wolf's kid? Well, honestly, there were times it was humiliating and a bit exasperating. After all, it was high school, it was my dad, and he was always around. And usually with a bad joke to embarrass you. But it was comforting. And not just because I always had lunch money if I forgot my lunch. He may have always been around, but people liked him, so it was okay. I always knew that I was loved. And while most parents go through high school being able to be proud of their kids, I got to be proud of my parent. So this honor is truly deserved, and we're so thankful for you and for the chance to call you Dad.
Here he is, the man of the hour, Andy Wolf.
Wow. I am really overwhelmed. And I'm sorry about the weather, but we had a track meet Wednesday and Friday here, and whatever strings I could pull, I had to pull for Wednesday and Friday. So I'll take the blame for that. Just to start out, I appreciate the letter Paul Mentor wrote, but I have to correct one thing that Mr. Hall will testify to, that there were not hundreds of lesson plans. Anyway, and to Coach Lee and Coach Gross, they want me to take the fur off the hood, but I think it goes well with the mustache. You know, in Quest class, which was a life-changing class, that Mike Hall asked me to get certified to teach, because Mike Hall cares about kids more than most human beings on earth. In Quest class, one of the things we talked about was accepting a compliment, because it can be hard. It can be embarrassing. It can feel undeserved. But the fact is, people compliment you because they mean it most of the time. And there is no greater compliment than to be remembered kindly. And there is no greater compliment than to spend time with someone. And you are doing both. Thank you. It's that simple. And when they say I've touched lives, please remember this. They touch back. I doubt that I gave more than I got, because I have been touched so often and so deeply by such wonderful athletes and students and parents and friends of those and everybody involved. I am just totally lucky. I've been lucky enough to surround myself with talented and smarter people than I am. And I've kind of reaped the benefits of that. I want to say a special thank you to Randy Corbett and Joe Kelly, who started all this, and really I wasn't in favor of it, and quite honestly they said what I said in the newspaper, we're just going to wait till you die and do it without you. And you know, listening to all those senior minutes there in the cafeteria, it really was, I never did eat anything, but which is okay, because I wasn't laying in a pine box either to have to hear all that. And that's, I take that as a good sign. So thank you, Randy and Joe and the committee. And I had a senior moment, but my senior moment is like, why did I come in this room? So I didn't offer that up. But anyway, it went beyond the call of duty, and Steve Nestor with all the shirts and donating shirts to the teams. I mean, this is a wonderful community. And they say it takes a village to make great things happen, and you are that village. They also say that every village has an idiot. And I guess that would be, well, never mind. I noticed, being a historian, and this is serious, that there are a few things named after people at Anderson High School. Titus Auditorium was named after my principal, E. Wayne Titus. The Mike Hall Way, Academic Hall of Fame, is named after Mike. Charles Brown Stadium that we're sitting in. I remember being here when it was dedicated to Brownie, and I think my sophomore year, and I remember raising money for the press box. We went door to door with bumper stickers that said, I bought a brick for the Anderson press box. So I did that. And the other thing, every bathroom here at Anderson is known as John. So I feel like I'm in select company. Although Actually, I almost was in that pine box. Mr. Legendary Track Coach Icon, Wednesday at the track meet, we're running the 300 hurdles, and Coach Hoon and Coach Gross and I are ready to step out onto the track to adjust some hurdles that some athletes hit. And we looked both ways and didn't see anything. And Robert got out to lane 7 and 8. I stepped into lane 1 and was run over by a guy in lane 1. I mean, it was my fault. I stepped onto the track. I don't know why he was 15 seconds behind everyone else. Honest to goodness. And there will be no high fives tonight because this arm, that's it right there. It does not go up any higher. I talked to the young guy, and I won't mention what school, but I told him I was really sorry, and it was on me. It was my fault. He said, I'm sorry too. I didn't want to have to run this race. And he said that. Everybody in the heat had times about 45 seconds, and his qualifying mark was 61. And you know, I thought, I'm sorry I messed up your race, but why would you put a guy in that position? And I hope I have never done that, to put a guy in a position where he hates to run his race. So anyway, I know there's a danger to naming something after a living person. I have been warned by the committee to stay away from troublemakers, carousers, people with wild and crazy reputations. So to many of my closest friends, most of the committee, a lot of my colleagues, my entire coaching staff, and certainly my immediate family, I guess this is goodbye. You know, there's a price. There's a price. But I do have to thank my family. My daughter Katie mentioned my mom. I remember regional cross-country meet, high school year. I had to be in the top 10 to make the state meet. I was sick as a dog and was trying to count. It was at Avon Golf Course, lots of hills, and couldn't really see everybody. And I thought I was safe, and my mom comes running down a hill, Lucky Strike cigarette dangling from her lips. Seriously, yelling, "Get the lead out of your 12th." Well, I thought I was in the top 10, so I figured Mom had a point there, and so I speeded up and caught a few folks. So family's important. Thank my wife Barb, obviously, like everybody else has said, working here at meets, especially on her birthday and her anniversary. I always seem to schedule meets then, and the kids worked at all the meets, and it's just been a family thing. Katie, like Katie said, she scored the state track meet with smiley faces when she was a little girl. I still have that paper when Bill Riffle won. That was pretty cool. I got interested in trying to be kind of tough, I guess, when I read a book called Lawrence of Arabia. And he used to do long, crazy bike rides and runs, and I just thought, you know, how many wars have we helped England out in? If an English guy could do that, I could do that. And it worked. You know, I was never a great runner. I was pretty good. I got to go to the state meet. I made it to the national championships in college. I got to test myself against the best in America, and they won. But you know, I got there, and that really was important. But I wanted to be a teacher for a long time. And when I got to the 6th grade, Anderson was out on Beachmont, K through 12, 2-lane road, one each way. Forest Road was dirt. They put tar on it so it wouldn't be dusty. And I was lucky enough to have a 6th grade teacher named Jerry Boyle. And I don't know if Mr. Boyle got here tonight. I know they had a family wedding. Did Mr. Boyle get here? No, he didn't. But I'll tell you what, I didn't like to read, and I was very shy. And Mr. Boyle made school fun and challenging and exciting. He once sent me from the elementary part of the building to the high school science lab to get a bucket of steam to clean the chalkboards. And I was a quiet, shy kid, and I thought, man, he picked me to get that bucket of steam. And I walked into that science class and asked for that bucket of steam. And they didn't have one. But the point was, he wasn't, and I figured this out later, he wasn't making me the butt of a joke. He wanted to get me involved in a fun way. And somehow he made a point out of that. And somehow, even more amazing, I got it. And ever since Mr. Boyle, I wanted to be a teacher. And my goal has always been to be as good a teacher as Mr. Boyle. I'm still trying. But he also taught us speed reading, which he did as a part-time job, which kind of helped. And I've always tried to read one book a week, one to learn, and then one for enjoyment, because I was a storyteller in history class. And I wanted to make history come alive. And over these years, so many kids tell me, do you still tell this story? Do you still tell that story? And not one has yet meet me at Kroger's and said, man, I loved page 83. So I think I was on to something. I just wanted to teach people the love of the challenge, like I had with Lawrence of Arabia, to love the sport. And once I got into coaching, we'd practice up on the hill there sometimes, and I'd see these pee-wee football coaches in those funny shorts with the waistband, and the big belly, and they'd be cursing at these poor little boys who didn't even know how to put on their padding, and they're cursing them about football and stuff, and I thought, they're going to come out for cross country. That didn't seem like fun. So I learned a lot from some bad coaches, but I had some great ones. And I think you've heard we've had some hard workouts. We had a lot of mutual respect, and the hurdles and the hardships that you face on the track are just practice for those hurdles and hardships when you're a parent or an employee or a husband or a wife, and it should be applicable. And I was lucky to coach my own children. As you heard, they were involved in the sport and did pretty well. And I coached my brother Frank in the pole vault and my nephew Zach, and it was all so much fun to have that family tie, and that they got to know me in a little different way. Had great opportunities. I've taken teams overseas, competed in Europe 3 or 4 times, and in China, and got to work with the Olympic team in Colorado Springs. But I tell you, something I learned, I think Autumn was on the team when you guys rolled around in the mud at a cross-country meet because it was raining so hard, and instead of standing there trying to dodge the drops, the girls just rolled in the mud. Might as well get it over with. And just looking around, that intimidated every other team there. So, is that right, Autumn? Remember that? St. X meet, that's right. So I'm taking a U.S. cross-country team to Munich, top, what they call juniors, people not yet 20 years old. And the cross-country course was submerged by a week of rain, so they ran it as a 5K loop on 5 1-kilometer loops on cobblestone streets. And it was like 33 degrees and raining. It was awful. And there were teams from all over the world, the Kenyans, the Russians, the Germans, the English, everybody. You had geography. So a lot of them are standing around like this, as if you're going to dodge the drops. So I said to the girls, and I had 2 freshmen from Anderson I could take along, Sandy Tecklenburg and Carly Himmelstein, who were very good freshmen. I thought, might as well take some freshmen because they'll have 4 years to use what they learned. And I said to the girls, we're going to beat those Kenyans, we're going to beat those Russians, but you got to have a little faith in me. And they looked at me probably like I was crazy. And I said, see that puddle there? We're going to go roll in it, and you're going to be smiling about it. And they rolled in it, and they smiled, and we beat the Kenyans, and we beat the Russians, and we beat everybody. A little confidence, a little courage, a little rolling in the mud, and I learned that from my team. I learned that from my team. So thanks, ladies. That was a big international win for the United States. I've had the pleasure of coaching great athletes, and some of the opposing coaches were in the cafeteria. They're probably smart enough to have gone home before it got cold. But you know why we're all friends? We don't play defense. We don't try to stop somebody else. We just try to do our best. And you can shake hands. And, you know, I like it when my guys warm up with the Turpin guys because they're friends from junior high. That's the whole point. And, you know, great athletes like Chelsea and Sean, and I could go down the list, the Andreatises, Shields brothers, everybody. I don't want to try to name everybody's names, but I have been just so lucky. And so many people that weren't fast. They're just wonderful human beings, and they're doing great things now. And almost like Justin back here was a little, like he said. So he was just fun 24/7. Now I'm on the Forest Hills Foundation now, which is a wonderful group, and I'm on the grant committee, and this past year we gave a grant to a group at an elementary school that wanted to put little pedals under the desk so the kids could do this and not be hyper. I remember for somebody bringing in an exercycle and a stair climber machine to the classroom 20-some years ago, and it worked, especially before he went to English class. That was his chair in the class, and then anybody else who wanted to sit in it. Didn't bother me if they were pedaling, it didn't make any noise. Now, years later, it's innovative. Just seemed like the thing to do back then. And it was free. We just got, somebody was putting it out for the trash, and I put it in a van, and we got it. I remember teaching history class one day, and there was a man at the door. We didn't have security then because people were not trying to kill each other for no good reason. And this man's out there going like this. I'm teaching. So I said to the kids, I'm going to talk to this fella. It was Tom Mitchell. He says, I'm moving here from Oregon. I got 4 boys. 3 of them are going to run track. And he says, could I talk to you a minute? Because I want to know if you know what in the heck you're doing before I buy this house. So I said, yeah, all right. So I said to the class, time out. Mr. Mitchell came in. He asked me what I did to practice and coaching philosophy and things like that. And I told him, and he said, all right, the closing's at 3. The boys are on your team. We've been friends ever since. Denny was at the Anderson Invitational, one of the boys, Thursday night in the prelims with his 2 girls from Madera. We're reminiscing. The next day, the Madera coach tells me Denny was hurt very seriously in a motorcycle wreck. His daughters left the meet. We finished the meet. I go see Denny. Because when you're on my team, it's till death do us part. That's the deal. I learned that from great teachers that I had. My high school track coach, Carlos Hamilton, is here today. I learned that from Mr. Hamilton. From my homeroom teacher, who's here today, Mr. Tobin. They're here today. I learned that from these guys. That's the Anderson way. And I learned that when I was a kid from Mr. Boyle, and so many times throughout my career I got notes from Mr. Boyle, even before the internet, just encouraging me to be a good teacher or a good coach or run fast at the NCAA meet, whatever it was. That is the Anderson way. And that's what I try to the best of my ability, just try to do it. I may not be the best coach in my family. Kyle's coached the national champion. I know I'm not the best coach from Anderson High School. Vern Hawkins, who's here, one of the mile record holders, is in the Hall of Fame. His farm this track was built on what used to be his farm. I'm not even the best coach to come out of Anderson. I will never be Vern Hawkins. But what I am proud is being a teacher. And one of my proudest things is that 5 of my guys, somebody mentioned a lot of our guys have coached college. 5 different Anderson athletes have coached national champions at the college level. To my knowledge, nobody else can say that. And as a teacher, that matters to me. It matters more than our records, because our guys are going out and doing it for the next generation. Just like Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Tobin, Mr. Boyle did it for me. And I know Sean's doing it with guys that he coached down in Florida. I see it on Facebook, all these great athletes that he has fathered, mentored, and it's just been wonderful and fun. And I'll close with a little Justin Coletta story. That day that he was going to come out for track, at the request of his brother, I said, sure, he can come out late for the team. So Saturday morning, I said, Adam, where's Justin? He says, Mom says he can come as soon as he gets all of the fishing line out of the ceiling fan. That's how I met Justin Coletta. And on the last day of high school at graduation, at my closing remark, at Music Hall, a very dignified, formerly dignified place. After the ceremony, the people are all, if you remember, out in the lobby milling around, happy that their child has graduated from high school, not in jail or anything. Justin sees me from a few feet away, and he runs and leaps into my arms, kisses me on the forehead, and in a voice loud enough to be heard, probably in a 40-foot radius, he yells out, Coach, the tests are back. You really are my father. That's what coaching is about.
True story.
And then 2 years ago, Justin asked if he could come back and address the team. And I'm thinking, sure. Because I knew it would be fun, if nothing else. And Justin talked to the cross-country guys, and this is really what it's all about, this passing it along. Justin talked about how the cross-country lifestyle saved his life in the wars in the Middle East. And he had that team more attentive than I ever could have. And he used the phrase, engage the mechanism, in his talk. And those kids talked about engaging the mechanism, and they were so fired up by one of the funniest guys ever. But he talked about how the cross-country lifestyle changed and saved his life. And I'm thinking, that's the kind of teacher and coach I want to be. Just, you know, pass it along, and Justin will pass it along, and all these kids and kids in warm-up jackets will pass it along next. So anyway, thank you all very much. This is just overwhelming, and thank you for your time and your kind memories.
Hello, my name is Forrest Tice. I'm the Vice President of the Forest Hills School Board. And on behalf of my fellow board members and Superintendent Scott Prebles, I would like to extend our sincere congratulations and thanks to Coach Andy Wolf for over 44 years leading up to this dedication. The previous presenters have given eloquent and a beautiful overview of a truly outstanding career. I did not run for Coach Wolf. I had the misfortune of running against his athletes. Many of them are here. Brian Hawk, Sean Prophet. In fact, it's completely appropriate that Sean finished his speech before mine, as he had always finished before me every other time we were on this track. Sitting at the ECC meet this morning, I also noticed something else that Coach Wolf gave to the sport. Nearly every men's coach is now sporting a mustache, made famous by Andy. I guess if you can't coach like him, you might as well look like him. In all seriousness, no, Coach Wolf has been an inspiration to thousands of athletes and changed their lives for the better. As the field naming committee said, and I wholeheartedly agree, he epitomizes everything that is good about coaching. From inspiring athletes to do their best, to perhaps even more importantly, I totally agree, to inspiring many to follow in your footsteps to touch the lives of thousands of others. When asked about getting this honor, Coach Wolf said that getting stuff named after you should only happen after you're dead. But I believe the committee realized that after becoming battle tested by over 40 years of being around teenagers, enduring thousands of hours in driving rain, sleet, snow, brutal heat, and wicked cold. Coach Wolf, you may well live forever. So, by proclamation of the Forest Hills School Board and with the full support of the Forest Hills community in Anderson Township, the Village of Newtown, it is my great pleasure to officially announce that this track you see before you will now and evermore be known as the Andy Wolf Track at Anderson High School. Congratulations.
All right, Coach Corbett pointed out that they do have the name up on the building next to Mr. Brown, who's a wonderful guy, and everyone is invited to come down if you'd like to, if you're not too numb, to take a walk on the track.
The first lap, we're going to go post-party.
Oh, also there is a post-party at O'Neill's, which is behind Arthur's, right? That's correct. Okay, so feel free to come up and hang out and try to get warm.